And we've heard the call out. Stage 1 landing is confirmed.
Velocity signal Cape and acquisition of signal Newfoundland.
Getting a view now of the Crew-3 astronauts from a camera aboard Dragon. The crew now coasting in low Earth orbit, still attached to that second stage. Again, that next milestone coming in about 2 minutes. That second stage will separate, and Crew Dragon will be flying free. And again, we are standing by. There we go.
Dragon separation confirmed.
Dragon, CE, welcome to orbit. Hope you enjoyed the ride from F9. Dragon will take you from here. Safe travels. Stand by for words from LD.
And Endurance, LD here. On behalf of the SpaceX launch and recovery teams, it was a pleasure to be part of this mission with you. Enjoy your holidays amongst the stars. We'll be waving as you fly by. Cheers.
Wow. Incredible views of the crew now in orbit on their way to the International Space Station. It was a great ride,
better than we imagined.
And some final words from the crew as well. There they are, our Crew-3 astronauts, now in orbit. That next milestone will be the deployment of the nose cone. That'll be about a 5-minute process. It'll expose those forward bulkhead Dracos and will prepare them for checkouts as well.
Nick Courtney watching them in zero-G right now, working their displays. It looks so easy, but we had the benefit of watching the launch team, the spacecraft team, the NASA team, everybody working here for the last weeks, working through this, and it's good to see it come out looking just so easy right now.
Yep, it's been a long time coming, and we're so excited to see them in orbit.
Good morning. Welcome aboard Endurance. 100 kilometers above the Earth. We're passing over the Australia, appears to be the western coast of Australia. 600 kilometers from the International Space Station. It's been a wonderful ride up here, an incredible experience, and we'd like to talk about our spacecraft, a little bit about life on board. And so, the Dragon spacecraft was a wonderful ride. Falcon gave us a very, very smooth ride. We were all surprised at how much we were able to feel the acceleration at first, which was very smooth, but then the throttle down and the throttle back up again, and then the incredible 4Gs as we entered into the rest of the ascent, particularly on the MVAC as we had our sustained Gs towards the end. Staging was very exciting. A few moments of apparent zero-G during that time, but was quite smooth compared to a lot of other launches that I've experienced. We also wanted to introduce our crew member of the crew here.
To introduce our zero-G indicator, FOW. That's German for peacock. And we chose FOW to be our zero-G indicator because Raj and I are both from the class called the Turtles. And we're excited to represent our class in space. And Tom is a peacock. So to get everybody on board, we picked a peacock turtle. You'll note she's peacock colored, and we named her FOW, which is German for peacock. But so far, we've just been hanging out in the cabin. Tom's our veteran crew crew member, and the rest of us are rookies, so we've been getting our space legs and doing pretty well so far. I think I'll pass over to Grinder to talk a little bit about the displays and what we've been up to in the cabin.
Sure. So far, it's very much like the sim, except it's a lot easier to scratch your back. But, yeah, we've been having a great time so far. We've done, as Tom mentioned, we're at 400 kilometers now, and we can see that via a series of displays here, kind of like looking out at like a HUD on an aircraft, and then also a map of the world, and that's how we keep track of where we're at and what's coming up next. We've done a few burns so far to raise our orbit and catch up to the ISS. So we're at a slightly lower altitude and moving faster and getting closer to it every hour until we eventually wind up docking with it tomorrow. So it's been a great ride, like Tom and Kayla mentioned, and Tom and Fao has been along with us, enjoying it with us the whole way.
So one of the first activities that we did in Endurance was we left our signature, we subbed it, and here it is, Crew-3 on board of Endurance. The next activities that we did, we started looking out the window and taking some very first shots, practicing our skills, like internal shots of us floating freely in the cabin, like Kayla is currently doing. A few shots of the burns during the night orbits, and also some nice shots of the Earth.
Also, one of the most delightful things about being in space is eating, and everybody's been feeling really good. We've been enjoying the food. We've already had 2 meals, which is kind of surprising. However, the new folks on the crew have been handling the food just fantastic. We've not had any disasters at all. The water is quite interesting, drinking out of the water bottles. Matthias has come up with, I'm sure others have thought about this, but Matthias has perfected a method of turning the water bottle into a bit of a centrifuge, and the trick is keeping the water at the top when you drink it. But, of course, just drinking water is an enormous amount of fun up here as well. I'll hand that over to you. And
Tom's pulling out some of the food to do a little demo of what we've been eating. Yep, we have scissors and a spoon to help us eat. One of our mottos at NASA is train like you fly, and we spent a lot of our extra time in quarantine the past week eating a lot, so we're well prepared to come up here and eat a little bit more.
And as you know, in space, we're encouraged to play with our food. We've already had some target practice with macadamia nuts. And so far, I'd say we've been fairly successful. The life support system is still good, and all the important parts have no food particles on them. So.
And as Matthias mentioned, probably the coolest view we've had so far was a night firing of the Draco thrusters. And so the forward thrusters are mounted just above the forward hatch here. And the other neat thing you can see looking out the forward hatch is right now the moon, but also the docking pedals that will help us attach to the space station when we get there. So yeah, a great view of the ultimate goal there, the moon, Mars, and beyond with exploration, but on our way to do some amazing work on the space station using these docking pedals to visit Mark and the rest of the crew up there.
Good morning from Mission Control Houston and the International Space Station Flight Control Room. I'm NASA's Leah Cheshire Mustachio. On the left side of your screen, you have Mission Control Houston, and on the right side, that is Mission Control SpaceX in Hawthorne, California. You're watching our continuous coverage of Crew-3's mission to the International Space Station aboard Crew Dragon Endurance. Crew-3 lifted off on time last night at 9:03 p.m. Eastern Time and is scheduled to dock this evening at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time. That's looking like about 8.5 hours from now. All of the burns that have been completed thus far, 3 of those 5 major burns have been on time and completed nominally. There are still 2 burns coming up. In about 2.5 hours, we'll have the transfer burn, and in 3 hours and 15 minutes, the final co-elliptic burn. The crew aboard Crew Dragon is currently in their sleep period. They've been doing so for a few hours and will continue to do so for the next few hours, getting some rest after a long and exciting day launch yesterday, as well as preparing for their arrival this afternoon. We have 3 first-time space flyers aboard Crew Dragon Endurance. One of those is the commander, Rajachari. He's colonel in the U.S. Air Force. He holds degrees in astronautical engineering and aeronautics, and he's also a combat veteran. He's flown the F-15E aircraft during Operation Iraqi Freedom and has had deployments in the Korean Peninsula. As a test pilot, he's accumulated more than 2,500 hours of flight time in various military aircraft. The only seasoned space flyer on this trip is Tom Marshburn. He is the pilot, and this is his 3rd space flight, flying previously on the Space Shuttle Endeavour in STS-127 and on the Soyuz in Expedition 3435. He helped assemble the space station on STS-127, and during that time performed 3 spacewalks totaling almost 19 hours. He's a North Carolina native and holds degrees in physics and medicine. Mission Specialist Kayla Barron is on her first trip into space, and this launch that she was on was actually the first launch she's ever attended in person. She's a Washington State native and has degrees in nuclear engineering and systems engineering, and was a submarine warfare officer, a member of the first class of women commissioned into the submarine community. She deployed 3 times while serving aboard the USS Maine. She's discussed the similarities between living on a submarine in the very uninhabitable environment of the deep ocean, as well as what she'll be doing for the next approximately 6 months of living in the harsh environment of space. Matthias Maurer is also making his first trip to the International Space Station. He's an ESA, or European Space Agency astronaut. He's the 2nd European astronaut to fly on Crew Dragon, and he's from Sankt Wendel, Germany. He's a doctor of materials science engineering and the inventor of more than 10 patent applications. Maurer joined the European Astronaut Corps in 2015 and has spent 16 days underwater during a NASA Extreme Environment Mission Operations Challenge, also known as NEMO. Maurer has also trained in sea survival training off the coast of China. Another fun fact about Matthias Maurer: although these astronauts arrived in space at the exact same time, he is the 600th person in space. We're continuing to take your questions on Twitter with the hashtag AskNASA, so if you're curious about something, feel free to send it to us with that tag, and we will do our best to answer it. This one, hello to you. Who makes the food in space? The food in space on the way up is made by the Johnson Space Center Space Food Laboratory. These are thermo or heat-stabilized food in pouches, similar to MREs or meals ready to eat that military members are familiar with. These are essentially prepackaged meals ready for consumption without any heating or addition of ingredients. And it's a little bit different than some of the food that's available on the International Space Station. These are, once they get to the space station, they'll have the opportunity to consume rehydratable foods. That includes both foods and beverages. Food is pretty heavy and can take up a lot of space, so one way to conserve the weight and space needed to launch that food is to dehydrate it and remove the water from those food items. So they freeze the food to an extremely low temperature, place it in a vacuum chamber, and then the water content within the food sublimates and freeze dries the food, allows it to have a longer shelf life. Astronauts are able to take that food, plug it into a water source, and reheat it with the specified temperature water that is on the outside of the pouch. They mash it up and prepare it for consumption. Food for the Roscosmos cosmonauts is prepared by their space agency, and sometimes astronauts from various different countries, like Matthias Maurer, are able to bring up other special foods, and it's a very common practice for members of the International Space Station from various countries to trade foods and allow a taste of different cultures for their crewmates. For today's flight aboard Crew Dragon, each crew member has breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack for the nominal ascent and descent profiles. That's 3 meals plus 1 snack for each crew member going in each direction, totaling at 24 meals and 8 snacks. And of course, they have water with them as well, about 64 liters or almost 17 gallons. To account for contingency requirements, each crew also has an additional day's worth of food. So in total on the vehicle is 48 meals and 16 snacks. That covers the nominal and contingency ascent and descent profiles. And this is a live look inside Mission Control Houston at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Crew members here are monitoring the systems aboard the International Space Station. It's looking a little sparse right now as we are currently in a satellite handover. These are tracked and we expect to regain communications through the TDRS or Tracking Data and Relay Satellite System shortly. Meanwhile, this view on the other side of the country, Mission Control SpaceX in Hawthorne, California at SpaceX headquarters. They're monitoring the status of the Crew Dragon vehicle. And these teams will really jump into action working together when we approach the approach ellipsoid, which is a 4 kilometer by 2 kilometer by 2 kilometer invisible shape around the International Space Station. This is what we use for both crew and cargo vehicles to track arrival and departure of the vehicles to the space station. Keep sending in your questions using the hashtag AskNASA on Twitter. This one asking if astronauts have tried to grow plants on the space station. Yes, indeed, and we recently had a major harvest of the first chili peppers to be grown in space. Astronauts have grown other plants such as zinnia flowers and red romaine lettuce. Sometimes the astronauts are fortunate enough to get to taste test these before sending other specimens back to Earth. And last week, Crew-2 astronaut Megan MacArthur was able to make some tacos with those fresh chili peppers. Growing plants in space enables us to prepare for future long-duration missions to destinations a little bit further away than low Earth orbit, like the Moon and Mars, when it'll be a little bit more difficult to take food with us. Growing food on the space station also proves to be a great pastime for the crew members. They really enjoy having that connection to Earth. Our next Ask NASA question, asking who makes the crew's badge. We typically refer to it as a mission patch. You've probably seen it on their spacesuits, as well as the sticker they put inside the capsule, and you'll continue to see it throughout this broadcast as well. The mission patches for decades now have been designed by the crew members themselves. They can either design them on their own, or they can work with an artist to share their design ideas and make it come to life that way. In this patch, you'll see some prominent features like the sunlit Crew Dragon capsule. And if you look closely, you'll see a number 3 in the flames for this being the third long-duration crew mission to the International Space Station with SpaceX, as well as the 3 blue stars in the background marking the event. And to the right of that 3 in the flames is a dragon head. There are also 4 red stars in the back. That is for each of the astronauts that's flying today, and also signifies our future goals of journeying to Mars. Our next Ask NASA question wonders, how do astronauts get privacy on the space station? Of course, when you are there for 6 months approximately, and even longer for NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei, who is completing a nearly year-long mission in space, it's important to have a little time to yourself. Each of the astronauts has something called a crew quarters, and these are about the size of a small closet or a phone booth. That's where the crew members sleep. They also have access to a computer sometimes and can put up pictures of their family and loved ones. But that's their private space on the International Space Station, and though it may seem small, don't forget that you can use all walls as a floor and a ceiling, because there is no up or down in space. The International Space Station is flying 266 statute miles over Mongolia in an orbital nighttime, and about 10 kilometers below it is Crew Dragon. Crew Dragon still has 2 major burns in its rendezvous profile before we enter the approach initiation phase, and docking is scheduled for about 8 hours and 10 minutes from now at approximately 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time. We're continuing to provide live coverage all the way through docking, hatch opening, and the crew's welcome ceremony, and we'll hope you will continue to join us for all of those events. If you've missed anything exciting so far, yesterday during launch or today's media event with the crew aboard Crew Dragon, we have the highlights ready for you, and we'll be right here.
This is NASA TV.
You're looking live at the Crew Dragon spacecraft on top of a Falcon 9 rocket set to launch 4 astronauts to the International Space Station in just a few hours. Today, a crew of 3 Americans and 1 European astronaut will set off on a 6-month science mission to the world's only orbiting laboratory. And welcome everyone to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida for live coverage of NASA and SpaceX's launch of Crew-3. I'm Gerald Nail with NASA, and this is NASA's astronaut, Shannon Walker. So thrilled to have you here with our launch broadcast. First time for somebody who's actually flown on the Dragon.
Yes, I am so excited to be here. I figure if I can't actually be on the Dragon, this is the next best place to be.
There you go. And we left the model behind us with the door open just
Good,
in case.
I'll go get in it.
Sake.
Yep.
Let's take a look at some video here. They stuck their sticker on the wall, literally. Right below Crew 1 sticker, there's Crew 3, and then they gave it a tap, slapped it on the wall. It's a new tradition. And Shannon, I guess you started that, right? Your crew?
Well, yep. Well, I believe Demo 2 is there as well, but it's something crews like to do, leave their stickers wherever they are, so we put it on inside crew quarters.
We are now live inside the suit-up room where the Crew 3 astronauts are getting their final checks of their spacesuits. You can see it there. This is a suit-up room, very familiar to you, Shannon. You were here not too long ago.
Not too long ago, just a year ago. It's hard to believe it's already been a year.
Imagine that. And there we see the commander for this mission, Raja Chari. He is seated and getting his suit checked out. Tell me a little bit, Shannon, about this process. What all is going to happen as they sit there and the suit techs work on them?
Yeah, so what they're doing is they're checking what we call the integrity of the suit. So it's 2 things they're looking for. They're looking for that the suit will hold pressure in case the astronauts need it in an emergency, and they're checking to make sure that the communication links inside the suit are working.
And those suit techs, they all have numbers on their backs, and they are attending to the astronauts. Why are they all numbered?
They're numbered so we can keep track of who is whom out there. Some of those suit techs will be going on to the launch pad to work with the technical teams at the launch pad, and so just so we can keep track of who is doing what where.
And this is a very historic room, Shannon. Of course, astronauts have been suiting up here and getting checked out, since the Gemini program.
Yes, indeed. It is historic. You can see some of the old equipment there in the background. We're not using it now, but we left it in there with SpaceX left it in there. So just to remind us of what our history is.
It's a nice touch, along with the paintings on the wall and the pictures on the wall. As you mentioned, those are gauges and dials back there, but they're not currently in use. As they're sitting there, these seats, I understand, are just like the ones inside the Dragon?
That's correct. They're going to check things out just as they are going to be in the Dragon. So that's why they have those seats. The crew will get strapped in, get their seatbelts on before they pressurize.
And there's a wide shot of the room with the 4 Crew-3 astronauts. We have Commander Raja Chari, pilot Thomas Marshburn, mission specialist Kayla Barron, and Matthias Maurer. And we have other astronauts in the room as well, Shannon. You can see them surrounding some of the astronauts who are flying and what is their role today?
So there's a couple of different sets of people in there. We have their flight doctors associated with the crew. So there's, I believe, 3 flight doctors in there watching this process. And then we have another astronaut, what we call our crew support astronaut, who has been training with the crew, working with the crew, and also is there just to help out for all the stuff that's happening today.
Working hard, and here they are, the 4 Crew-3 astronauts as they walk down the hallway on their way out of astronaut crew quarters.
Yep, and they're waving to the folks that work there in crew quarters to get them ready to go, and they'll be stepping into the elevator that you see there. And at the back of the elevator, there should be a big sign that a lot of people from the Kennedy Space Center have signed.
We see that there. You can see the signatures on the left-hand side.
Yep. Yep, it's a nice piece of history that's done every time. But here they come.
And here they are, indeed. The Crew-3 astronauts taking their first steps outside before their journey to space.
All stations, core on countdown, crew have walked out and are departing the ONC building. We are 4 minutes ahead of schedule.
So the suit techs had their umbrellas on hand and ready?
Yep, you don't want to go to space with a wetsuit.
Yeah.
And so now each crew member standing in front of their family, saying a few words.
Keeping a safe distance?
Yes.
As required before they go into space?
The crew has been in quarantine and they remain in quarantine even at this moment.